Hey, Shalom Akim. First and foremost, give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Achak with us. The honors under the Elders Apostle Great Millstone, the Elders Great Millstone, and of course, peace and blessings under the hopeful elect, the sincere servants of Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, serving him in truth and sincerity. Yes, I'm the brother Chayaba from ZMS Plain Devil's Camp. Come back with another lesson of the Spirit. So this lesson be based off of John chapter 18, and we can start at verse 1. It says, when Yahushua had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Cedron, where there was the garden, into which he entered and his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Yahushua oftentimes resorted thither with his disciples. Judas then, having received the band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, cometh thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Yeah, we know, of course, Judas betrayed Yahushua, and ultimately, he brought the men, as it says, the men officers from the chief priests and Pharisees. Yeah. So it goes on to say, verse 4, Yahushua therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto him, Whom seek ye? They answered him, Yahushua of Nazareth. Yahushua said unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, and stood with him. As soon then as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. Showing what Yahushua's power, obviously. You know what? Ultimately goes to show that, again, Yahushua, is the supreme. He has superiority, of course, over the spirits. But the point is that, he had to go through his lot that the Heavenly Father put him through. So, even though what they fell to the ground, he still, of course, had to be obedient unto his mission. And go through the sacrifice that the Heavenly Father wanted him to go through. It says, verse 7, Then asked he them again, Whom seek ye? And they said, Yahushua of Nazareth. Yahushua answered, I have told you that I am he. If you therefore seek me, let these go their way. Yeah, because ultimately it was Yahushua's sacrifice to go through. And ultimately, it wasn't the disciples' time yet. Of course, the disciples, got persecuted. And ultimately, some, or basically all of them got put to death except for Apostle John the Revelator. So let's go to verse 9. So it says, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spake, of them which thou givest me, I have lost none. Exactly. So, fulfilling prophecy. It says, Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it, then smote the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Then said Yahushua unto Peter, Put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? Exactly. So ultimately, can't beat was appointed onto by the Father already. If the Father points something onto you, then you have to go through it. It says, Then the band and the captain and officers of the Jews took Yahushua and bound him, and led him away unto Annas first, for he was father-in-law to Caiaphas, which was a high priest the same year. Now Caiaphas was he which gave counsel to the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. Again, also, of course, fulfilling prophecy. It says, verse 15, Then and Simon Peter followed Yahushua. So did another disciple. That disciple was known unto the high priest, and went in with Yahushua into the palace of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door without. Then went out that other disciple, which was known unto the high priest, and spake unto her that kept the door, and brought Peter in. Then saith the damsel that kept the door unto Peter, Art not thou also one of this man's disciples? He saith, I am not. It says, and the servants and officers stood there, who had made a fire of coals, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves, and Peter still with them, warmed himself. So, yeah, ultimately, and again, so, Peter, of course, made basically, or what did Peter say? Basically, Peter was saying how, he wouldn't deny the Lord. But hey, as what Yahushua told him, Yahushua said that he would deny him 3 times. And obviously, we're about to read it, but again, showing you that you can't beat what the Heavenly Father has already appointed. So it says, verse 20, or verse 19, the high priest then asked Yahushua of his disciples and of his doctrine. Yahushua answered him, I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whether the Jews always resort. In the secret have I said nothing. Why askest thou me? Ask them which heard me, what I have said unto them. Behold, they know what I said. Yeah, so point is that Yahushua doesn't have to, repeat what he has already said. What he has already said. I mean, first of all, now, of course, is already written. And anyways, the Lord sends out his prophets. Of course, they preach his word. So, he doesn't need to speak again. It says, verse 22, and when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Yahushua with the palm of his hand, saying, Answerest thou the high priest so? Yahushua answered him, If I have spoken evil, bear witness of evil. But if well, why smitest thou me? Exactly. Because ultimately, they got offended. It says, verse 24, Now Annas has sent him bound unto Caiaphas, the high priest. And Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. They said therefore unto him, Art not thou also one of their disciples? He denied it, and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, being his kinsman, whose ear Peter cut off, saith, Did I not see thee in the garden with him? Peter then denied again. Immediately the cock crew. So there you have it. So again, Yahushua spoken that into existence, that Peter would deny him 3 times. So, what happened? Point is that, you can't overcome the will of the Lord. It says, verse 28, well, yeah, I believe that's the point. The point is that, ultimately, again, what Yahushua, of course, commands and has appointed, or ultimately what Yahweh Bashim Yahushua has appointed, well, guess what? It's going to come to pass. Yahushua, had to go through a sacrifice. And whatever Yahushua points, of course, onto his elect, his servants, his friends, ultimately, we're going to have to go through it. Yeah, and ultimately, the Lord is looking for obedience. Truly, what the Lord is looking for, which is obedience. Yahushua's whole life goal, of course, was what? To do the Heavenly Father's will. He says, my meat is to do the will of my Father. And basically, that was Yahushua's whole point, was to do the will of the Father, what the Father commanded him to do. So Yahushua, of course, walked that life perfectly. So, of course, we got to do the same thing as well. So I believe it's a point. Those are you brothers out there edified. Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kakurash Brakatham. Shalom.